You keep it quiet, we say it loud. The things you hide, we're calling out. Double lies and blurred lines, love that cuts, truth that bites. Sex, secrets, and a little sass. Nothing stays buried when you drop the mask. We're the Gen Sexers, no shame, no filter. Just the truth, but hotter.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Sex, Secrets, and Sass. I am Angie.
And I'm Krissy, and we're the Gen Sexers.
Always
Welcome
like to
to
go,
another episode. Woohoo!
Generation Sex. We had one of our listeners say, hey, it's so useful to know what you do. So we thought, let's remind people, especially if you're new. And we're both therapists. I am in the Chicago area. Krissy's in
And I
Scottsdale.
am. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And this is just something that we thought would be enjoyable for us. We hope it's enjoyable for you. Nothing we talk about is from our clients. It's our personal stories or guests. And hopefully what we talk about resonates.
If you are new, welcome to our podcast. Be sure to check out the first 5 episodes. This is episode 6.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Yeah, last week we had Dr. Lori Neighbors on talking about being curious, or sober curious rather, and it brought up some stuff for Angie, and she has volunteered to be interviewed by me today on our podcast. So our guest today is our very own Angie Martin. Welcome to the show, Angie.
Thank you. So nice to be here.
Yeah, so I guess I just want to start with what resonated with you last week.
Honestly, it was while previewing and editing that episode with Dr. Lori and kind of looking at my face as I was editing and just watching, seeing what needed to be taken out, what was left in. And I thought, wow, I'm really thinking during the things that she's talking about, probably holding back things that I wanted to talk about, and recognized that alcohol played such a major part of my life, especially the past 25 years, and how it impacted my behavior, my relationships, and just all of that. And I thought maybe my story might resonate with others.
Great. So I'm curious now, what was your relationship with alcohol like prior to those 25 years you're referring to?
Well, I grew up Mormon. So to me, alcohol was verboten. Like, you do not touch it. And I was never interested in it growing up. The crew I hung around with, we were the show choir, dance, jazz hands. And even when I got to college, I went to school in California, Southern California. And I remember I can't believe I said this, telling people I'm high on life. I don't drink or smoke.
I bet people wanted to slap you.
Yeah, I was also a virgin. I had people writing me notes. Do you know what a blowjob is? So let's say school starts in August, September. By November, I had my first drinking experience in the dorm bathroom doing tequila poppers with my friends. Yeah. And then we went to a dance that was on campus, and that was it. I just started drinking after that. I remember coming home that particular night, laying in my bed, which of course was raised, and saying to my roommate, the room is spinning. She goes, yeah, because you drank. Like, my gosh.
That's what it's like.
Yeah.
Wow. So you went from not drinking at all to your first semester in college and doing shots of tequila.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, you went all in.
Yeah, I went all in. And then it just, from there, just kept going. I don't remember being overly, it wasn't like I was drinking all the time until I pledged. And then where I went to school, Whittier College, we don't have the Greek system, the Pan-Hellenic, sorority fraternity system, but we have what are called poet societies. Whittier was founded by Quakers, and so poets We were they still are the poets. That's our mascot. So they actually started as poet societies, and then they basically were similar to the Greek system, men and women's societies. And so I pledged, and I remember that when we all got in, everybody drinks a full bottle of champagne. And I remember throwing up on the pillow of one of the actives. But I just remember that's what college was. I guess for most people, typical college. And then got married shortly after school. And then I think it got really bad once we moved here to Illinois and I became a stay-at-home mom, which I loved. Absolutely loved being a stay-at-home mom. But the
And that
moms
was a
would get to.
choice. That was a choice
Yeah.
that you and your husband made together. That you.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, once the kids went to school, I don't know, moms kinda just started hanging out. We'd go work out together, go have lunch, have a glass of wine. Sometimes, the kids would come home, especially in the spring and, or in the summer, we'd start drinking at 3 or 4 o'clock, and, I think it's a slippery slope what then happens. I remember a friend of mine, we went to 7-Eleven while my husband and her boyfriend were fixing dinner at their place, sat by a dumpster, downed a few of those little bottles of TGI Fridays cocktails, and then we went out dancing after dinner, and my ex-husband said, "I give her 15 minutes." And within that time, I came back off the dance floor and said, I gotta go outside, because he called me the human tumbler. I did not handle my alcohol well. So I've always been a lightweight. And that didn't register with me that wasn't normal, because here I am, I'm 24 years old and still behaving like an idiot. And
24
that
is still really young.
came back, even after having kids. And then it just started to really spiral. I now know that when I drink, I become very belligerent, especially with vodka. And that was my drink. I loved vodka sodas, gin and tonics. Those were my favorites. And, we'd go out, we'd go to parties, we'd go to events where there was dancing, come home. At any of those, it was rare that I didn't come home really drunk.
Right. And when you say belligerent, what did
Well, I
that
would
look
pick
like?
fights. I would just pick fights with my ex-husband over stupid things. And it's not pretty. I'm so sad that that's what it was like when I think back to that right now.
Do you remember recognizing the belligerence while it was happening, or only after the fact, or after it was pointed out to you?
I don't even know if he recognized that it was the drinking
Okay.
that caused that. And I remember going to a therapist once and I'd say, of course, she's asking, what is your relationship with alcohol? And I'm like, I probably usually have 2 to 3 glasses of wine every night. She's like, that's a lot of alcohol. And that was the first time someone had said that to me. And I said, really?
Mhm.
2 to 3 glasses every night? And it's like, yeah, I have a glass while I'm cooking, and then I'll have one at dinner. Maybe I'll have a second one if I drink the first one. And it's like, no, that's more than you should be drinking. And that was the first time that someone had said that to me.
Did you feel at all shamed of that? Did it feel like she was shaming you, or was it just kind of a gentle
It was a
observance of.
it was gentle, and it was more, whoa, I didn't realize I was doing that. So I did start to make a drink that was non-alcoholic. My favorite is soda with a splash of cranberry. and some lime, and I would use that as I would I would drink that as I was making dinner because it still was a ritual of sorts for me. It was my favorite even when my ex-husband and I went to counseling. My favorite time of day was when everybody was home. He was home from work, the kids were home. They would be in the family room or around the table doing homework once they got to that age, and we were just all home, and it felt cozy and something I didn't have growing up of family dinners. That was really important to me as we all had family dinners. But now even, when I've talked to my kids, I was having a family session with a therapist with my two children who at this point, they've both graduated from college. This was just back in 2023.
Recent,
And
yeah.
that's when I realized "Eh, this is not good. I have to stop. I'm an alcoholic. I need to not drink." And I told them, I said, I'm an alcoholic. And neither one of them batted an eye. And they just
They're like,
said,
"Yeah, mom, we know."
okay. And then my son said, yeah, I remember at dinner, you backhanded me in the forehead because I was chewing with my mouth open. And I said, well, I remember doing that, but I thought it was just like this, more like a tap. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it that hard. He goes, no, I remember going upstairs into the bathroom and looking at the mirror, and it was the circle of your ring, the diamond. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was floored, mortified. And I thought, wow, not cool, not cool. So I tried in 2021 to stop drinking, tried to go to AA, did it, felt this big because I was walking into those rooms. Oh my gosh, who is the country singer? He's got tattoos everywhere.
Jelly Roll.
Yes, he's got
Mhm.
a song that talks about going into those rooms feeling like a piece of shit. The other, you know, AA people coming up and saying, no one comes in here feeling like a superstar. Everybody who's in this room's been where you are, but I still couldn't handle it. And then I stopped going. And like I said, I kept drinking. Then I pick right back up and I did all the things that they talk about. Well, I'm only going to drink on the weekends.
Mhm.
Well, I'm only going to
Mhm.
drink with my husband. Not going to drink with anybody else. I'm not going to drink by myself. And it's just a slippery slope. You start picking up the patterns. And then I find
Sure
out
is.
my current husband, he said, yeah, when I would come in at night and if I saw the glass while you were cooking dinner, I knew it was going to be a rough night. So all these things are coming out. And I thought, wow, that's it just it hurts to think that
Mhm.
I've hurt the people that I care about the most, my son, my daughter. I mean, we have gotten into knockout, drag down arguments because of my drinking. And she recognizes that. And she says, but that's no excuse. Like she and I have talked. And I'm like, you're right. It is it's a reason, but it's not an excuse.
Was there a part of yourself, a part of you that thought you were hiding it well? "I think I'm hiding this well."
Of course.
Or yeah, of
Like
course.
I can
Mhm.
handle that. And my husband would say, how come you don't know? How do you not know when too much is too much? And I say, I don't know. And I'd say, well, sometimes I can handle it, sometimes I can't, and he just would be like, you have to stop. You've got to start recognizing when it's too much and you've had too much. And now I know alcoholics don't know that. So when I started really noticing, stopping, starting to go to AA regularly, I started recognizing, yeah, I wanted to drink, but I didn't because I want to drink to get drunk. I don't want to drink just to have a drink. When I drink, I'm drinking to feel it, not just to have a cocktail. I could recognize that. And it took me a long time. I'd get to 4 months and I'd have a drink, and then the longest I went was 6 months. And to be honest though, this is the crazy thing, is that I actually stopped going to AA because I kept getting to this 6-month mark and I kept getting told, you need to do the steps. You need to do the steps. I don't like being told what to do.
Mm.
And I don't like the pressure. And I know that is also a thing for a lot of alcoholics. We don't like being told what to do. But I really just dug my heels in, and I'm like, I don't want this. My sponsor and I had a heart to heart. And so I stopped going because she was just like, if you're not, going to do the work, what are we doing? And I was like, I get that. And I stopped partly because we went to Germany, and I was like, I'm not going to Germany and not drinking beer.
Fair enough.
So, I was in the, the Hofbrauhaus with my mug, and it's interesting though, because those great big mugs that you get, those big pints, we didn't get drunk. That's what was so interesting. One was enough, and it wasn't enough to make you drunk. Like, it's just, they drink beer like water. And
It's cultural, right? It was a cultural thing. You wanted to feel part of.
and we came home, and I think it was shortly after that, I decided I'm done. I don't want to drink anymore. And I stopped drinking and celebrated a year sobriety. And I would see, some of the AA people out, we call it out in the wild, and they'd be like, hey, how are you? And I'm like, I'm sober. Because I wanted them to know, hey, just because I'm not coming, they're like, you're going to drink again. I'm like, I don't know about that.
I mean,
I don't
AA has
want
a
to.
place, right? And a lot of people swear by it, right? And it works so well for them. And for others, that's just not the path for them. There's so many other ways to do it.
Yeah, and I absolutely love the people in AA. And do you know, I wasn't active in AA, but when my mother died, January of 2025, she got really sick in December. So my mom got really sick, and I was like, "Do you want me to come home?" And at first she said no, and then she just called me and she said yes, and she ended up having uh cholangiocarcinoma, which is one of the worst because it's fast and it's very painful, and the treatment for it is just as painful and as bad as the cancer itself. I remember flying out on December 14th, stayed with her for a while, came back to Christmas so I could celebrate with the family. And then I went back and she was dead January 8th. And I remember being there and my sisters having drinking and my brother, and they're not getting out of control. But I was like, maybe I'm just going to have a drink with them. And someone from AA, who I hadn't talked to in forever, texted me out of the blue. Hey, thinking about you. Love you.
Wow. Talk about timing, like
I
divine
thought,
timing.
oh my gosh. So then I called my ex-sponsor and just told her what was happening, and she talked with me, and I made it through my mom's death, not drinking, which that's crazy. So
I'm so sorry for your loss, Angie.
it was hard, but it just
That's
felt good
hard.
not to drink. And then my son's wedding, and I didn't drink, and I had a great time. And so it's just kind of, I know I don't need to.
You were able to prove to yourself that life is joyful and full of
Yeah. Because
wonderful things without alcohol.
one of the things that Dr. Lori mentioned, she's like, people think that they're going to be boring, or that
Mm.
that parties will now be boring, or going out. And I will say, for a long time, with my husband, I refused to go out to dinner with other couples. We would go to a party and I would get the heck out of there pretty quickly because I didn't find it fun. I didn't find it enjoyable because I wanted to drink too. And I knew I just couldn't for many reasons. And so it was really hard going. In fact, I even asked my sponsor, do people get divorced going through sobriety?
Absolutely. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
people do. People do. In fact, I do remember there was one time that I was talking to my husband and I said something about drinking and it's the alcohol. And he had said something and I said something about drinking. And I said, because I'm an alcoholic. And he looked at me and he said, God, what is this with the alcohol? What happened to just depression? And I looked at him and I was like, oh my gosh. And I left to go to a meeting. And I think it clicked for him for some reason while I was gone that this is real. What she's going through is real. This alcohol changes her and she's doing something about it. And I don't know what clicked for him, but something did, thank goodness. And it's fine. He's a huge support now.
Yeah.
For a long time,
And does he drink?
He still drinks.
He still
Yeah.
drinks. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sometimes he'll be
And
like, are
what is
you
that like for
okay if
you?
I drink?
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't bother me now. I'm like, I don't care. Yeah, it doesn't bother me if anybody drinks now. It's not a big deal. I honestly don't want to because I know if I do, the only reason why I want to is so I can get drunk. And why even have just one glass? Because, I feel better. My skin's better. I just feel better.
Your
So,
energy's better, I'm sure.
I don't need it. Yeah.
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 So I'm curious, when you had that sit down with your 2 children and your husband and said those words, right? I am an alcoholic. Was that the first time you had said that you had used that label on yourself? And had you figured that out? Or was it someone else telling you, oh, I think you might be an alcoholic?
I had been told, well, to be honest, I was actually in an intensive outpatient program, an IOP, because I had drunk so much by myself at our lake house in the cold, cold winter. We had a really cold winter that December 2022 into 23. And I remember sitting in the hot tub thinking, oh, I could just go to sleep. Wait, no, I can't. I gotta, no, that's bad. And then put the cover, I had my robe on. There's snow outside. It's below freezing. And I laid down onto the cover of because I was warm, I was drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And just laid there. And again, it was like, I could just fall asleep. I could just fall asleep. And then I was like, no, you can't. I've suffered from depression my entire life and complex PTSD within the last couple of years. I've now discovered with therapy. But, even if I've had suicidal ideation, I always have a reason to not. And that particular reason that night was Maggie has her CPA exam. I can't die. I can't freeze out here. If I'm not that she needs me for her CPA exam, but if she's not going to be able to take her CPA exam, or not do very well. There's always this, I've got graduations. I've got.
Right. So those were like your protective factors.
Well,
right?
That's why I've got this. I ended up getting this tattoo, which is the semicolon. For my story's not over. This is my birth flower. This is my son's birth flower. And this is my daughter's birth flower. They keep me going. They're always my reason. And so anyway, because of that, I told my husband about it. I told my therapist about it. There was that. No, what really got me in the IOP is January 2nd, I was supposed to go to work and I was on the floor in a fetal position. I just was so distraught with just everything. And so they're like, you need some help. So that was one of the best things that ever could have happened to me because it was in an amazing program. They forced me to go to, they didn't force me. They didn't handcuff me and go, but they highly recommended that I go to AA because I've always been therapy. Why not be honest? And so they knew how much I was drinking and what happened when I was by myself. And they said, And I was like, "No, I tried AA. I'm not doing that. No, that's not it. I don't have a problem." And I said, "I'll go to" which one did I say I would go to? I don't even remember. Emotions Anonymous, I think. I don't know. So I think I went to one of those and I'm like, this group, it's not a good fit. And then I decided, fine, I'll go. And I went. So I think I'd already gone to a couple of meetings. And so by the time I told my kids, it was like, yeah, I am. But
You
also
believed
in
it.
that program is when I learned about my complex PTSD because we did processing and I had an intense flashback that took me way back into a memory I didn't remember. And it was like, whoa. And so, yeah. So I think, it just opened my eyes to some of the stuff that has happened to me and why I've done the things I've done and been in the horrible situations that I've been in. Because of drinking, I was sexually assaulted because I didn't have the wherewithal to stop it once. It's just gotten me into bad predicaments, stupid predicaments. And I think just listening to Dr. Lori, hear her talk about it, just really brought back a lot of that stuff, a lot of the memories, a lot of the regrets. And I remember being in AA meetings thinking, why in the hell are people saying, I'm so and so and I'm a grateful alcoholic? Why are you grateful? This sucks. We're not able to do the thing that we love to do. And I just couldn't get it. And now I'm like, no, I am grateful for that trajectory because I'm now able to see the pain I have caused to many, many people. I've apologized to my ex-husband. I've apologized to my current husband. I've apologized to my kids, maybe more than my daughter wants to hear. She's like, "Oh my God." Yeah. Um, I've apologized to friends, even though they've said, you didn't ever hurt me, but yeah, thanks. And it's been a journey and one that I'm grateful for because
Yeah.
it, number one, I recognize how difficult it is. I am not a specialist in substance and alcohol use disorders, and I recognize it in clients because a lot of it goes hand in hand with, the complex PTSD that I
And
treat,
depression,
depression,
anxiety.
right? That, even the secret lives and the secret
Uh,
affairs. And it just, even if people don't do anything, drinking sometimes exacerbates a problem within the marriage or partnership that is on the surface, and then it just makes it go deeper. And then they're thinking, well, why am I in this anyway? And it just,
mhm.
it's so intertwined with so many negative things. So I started my journey with Sober Curious. There is a woman who, oh shoot, I wish I knew her name. I'll look it up and we'll put it in the show notes. But she has a book called Sober Curious. And then it's a Sober Curious workbook. And it's a 100-day reset. And that's what I did. I had to do it twice because the first time I started cheating.
I
It's
definitely want the name of that because I'd be curious to read that.
Ruby, I think. Let me just look it up real quick because it's such a great,
A great resource for people
it
that
is,
are
okay,
just
I'm going to
wanting to explore.
day reset. Ruby. All right. It's going to take me a while. Ruby Warrington, anyway, she's British. And of course, the British humor, like, it's
I love
so
it.
fun to read it because she just calls it out, but also with humor that normalizes the angst. And also just calls out the bullshit of what you might be trying to do. And so I did her 100-day reset. I've not read the book. I just did the reset. The first time I cheated, the second time I made it all the way through.
The point of the book isn't to get you sober necessarily. It's to get curious about your sobriety or curious about your
It,
relationship with alcohol.
I think for the 100-day reset, it is not drinking.
Gotcha. Mhm.
But I think her book, it is more about curious, but I think the whole idea is stays in your system for 90 days.
Oh
90
boy.
days. So that 100-day reset, by that 100th day, it's completely out of your system by then. And
That's fascinating. I had no
yeah,
idea.
90
So basically,
days,
I've had alcohol in my system for the past, I think, 20 years. I'll go for stretches where I don't drink, but
right?
not 90 days worth.
Yeah, yeah. So even if you do dry October or dry January, it's
Mhm.
not out of your system when you start drinking it again, unless you go all the way to April. Let's say you do dry January, you have to go all the way to April for it to be completely out of your system.
Fascinating.
So, I think it has its place. I'm never going to say to somebody, stop drinking entirely. My husband loves scotch, and I bought him the whiskey for Father's Day. Jim Gaffigan has his own brand of
Jim
it's
Gaffigan,
called
he's so funny.
oh, I love him. Father Time is and so I bought it. I told him how much it was. He's like, "Don't ever do that again." But it's pretty good. And of course, I had to have a taste because he's the one who taught me how to drink whiskey and scotch, all the brown stuff. And I did have to taste that. So, if there's a really tasty cocktail or something, I'll be like, "Can I try that?"
Remember tasting a 40-year-old tawny port that was I almost started crying. It was such a beautiful experience sitting right there on the water, and yeah, so experiences like
Yeah.
that, I don't wanna have to give those experiences up.
Right. Yes. I celebrated a year and a half last October. And so since then, I've had, tastes here and there. If there's something my husband and I want to go have, it's so nice in the summer. And that was one of our favorite things to do. We'll go have maybe a glass of wine. I cannot do vodka. I tried to have a vodka soda. I picked a fight with him. And it wasn't until I was laying in bed and I thought, this is the vodka talking. And the next morning I said, I am so sorry I got snippy with you. And he apologized for something that he had said. And I said, and I'm not going to drink vodka ever again. He goes, I was going to mention it, but I don't know how to mention it with you. I'm like, no, vodka makes me
An asshole.
itchy. Yeah, totally. And then he's like, tequila makes my clothes come off. And I'm like, oh my God. Because he always
That
knows
is a
how to
great
make
country song.
yeah, he always knows how to make me laugh instead of feel sorry for myself. So I was like, yeah, I'm just not touching that. Beer, I'll have a beer with him sometimes. A glass of wine, I'll maybe do. I'm not sober in AA circles by any means. For me, though, I have no desire to ever go back. Like one and done. That's it. And I won't ever drink around my children or at a special event or anything like that just because it's not worth it. The history might repeat itself kind of thing, right? So
And it sounds
it's
like you learned so much about yourself through that process of
I did.
choosing sobriety.
I did. I learned I had to feel. That was something that my
Yeah.
therapist even said. There was one time that, when I was talking to her, I'm like, I'm able to handle, like, with my daughter, when we would get into arguments, I'd follow her into her room. And she's like, will you please leave me alone?
Give
But
me
it was this
space.
needy thing, like, well, please don't be mad at me. Please don't be mad at me. It was so weird now that I look back on that. She's like, oh my God, why do you take everything so personally? Go away from me. And so when I think back to that, I'm like, gosh, a lot of that was me getting triggered because I really didn't start getting triggered until they turned into teenagers. And I think that's what triggered all these different parts of me that felt dismissed, unloved,
Unwanted.
because they were being typical teenagers and not wanting their mom around. So I am able to handle disagreements with people and not become overly clingy or completely shut off. And I remember there was one time she said, yeah, you're able to handle this because in the past, there was a part of you that had you drunk at the bar. So you didn't have to feel it. Now that part has been told, you don't need to do your job anymore. I need to feel these. I need to heal. I need to learn how to handle when someone is mad at me, because people are allowed to get mad at me. It doesn't mean they don't love me anymore.
But it's really hard to sit with that for some of our parts, right? It's really hard to sit with someone else being angry or disappointed
Oh my
in
gosh.
us.
Yes, that's almost worse. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, that definitely being sober helped me navigate all of that.
Well, I do have one last question because our podcast is called Sex, Secrets, and Sass. I know how sexual you are, right?
Mm.
Sexual and sensual you are. And I'm curious what your relationship with alcohol and sex versus being sober and sex. Like, is there a difference for you? Has there been a difference in how you experience sex when you were drinking versus when you're sober?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay. I'm just
Probably,
curious.
probably. I love sex, so I love it all the time. I will say, and I hope people don't judge me for this, I recently had my first experience being stoned on marijuana and had sex. Holy cow. It was like fireworks were going off in my head. I told my
Mhm.
husband, I was like, oh
What
my
is
gosh.
happening?
Yes. I'm like, whoa. So, yeah.
Wow. I Now that you say that, I remember having a gummy. I did a show called Reefer Madness back in 20. It's a funny ass musical. I did that show, and as part of my research for the part, I smoked my first joint, and I hated it.
Ooh, I don't
But
like
after
smoking it.
that,
No.
yeah, it was horrible. But I had a gummy, I don't know, maybe a year, 2, 3 years after that, and I had the most powerful orgasm you could possibly imagine. I mean, I was singing opera. You could ask my husband. I was singing opera. I was composing an operatic score in my head and singing at the same time. It was crazy.
Huh.
And it was the
Yeah.
longest orgasm I've ever had.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not kidding. It was like explosions in my head. Like all the synapses were everything.
Crazy.
I was like this. Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy. Now, we're not condoning that, folks.
No,
We're not saying
no.
go out and do that. And we're just saying this was our experience,
Yes. Because it is legal in Illinois.
as it is in Arizona.
Okay. So it's legal in both of our states. We're not doing anything illegal.
Right.
And
It is
you
still
have
a
to be
federal
of age.
offense.
It is.
So
yes,
it is still a federal offense.
Yeah.
All about breaking the rules.
You and me both, lady.
I'm guessing there are so many women out there that are recognizing themselves in this story. So thank you so much for sharing. I recognize part of myself too. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to me and letting me share my journey with alcohol. Because it did help me. It helped me become a better mom, a better wife, a better friend, a better therapist.
Amazing.
For sure. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, folks, if you want to learn more about Angie, her website is obviously in the show notes, as is mine.
Mhm.
And be sure to like, subscribe, enjoy, hit the notifications bell so you know when our next podcast episode is. It's every Wednesday, FYI.
Wednesday. Yeah.
And happy orgasming.
Happy orgasming.
Gummy or no gummy.
All right. See
All right,
y'all
bye,
later.
everyone.
Bye.